For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. Good evening, everyone. This is From the South. We begin with the headlines. In Guatemala, Guatemalans celebrate the removal of presidential immunity from Otto Perez Molina as the Constitutional Court rejects his appeal. Plus, China signs off on $5 billion loan to boost Venezuela's oil output, while President Nicolas Maduro calls for peace on the Venezuelan border with Colombia. Finally, a U.S. judge has ruled that 6 Baltimore police officers accused of causing the death of a man in their custody will stand trial separately. Good evening once again. Our top story takes us once again to Guatemala, where the Constitutional Court there has rejected President Perez Molina's appeal for being stripped of immunity. Now, his immunity was removed yesterday, and he has been barred from leaving the country. The Attorney General, Thelma Aldana, has now requested his arrest. She recalled that the president is now a common citizen before the justice system. Now, under Guatemalan law, Perez Molina could be automatically removed from office if remanded in custody by a judge.
At the moment, he is a common citizen, even though he is president of the republic. He is a common citizen before the justice system, given that he lost his immunity. As a result, there will be criminal prosecution against the president.
And after Tuesday's decision to strip President Perez Molina of his immunity, thousands of Guatemalans hit the streets and celebrated throughout the night, braving intermittent rain showers. There, thousands of Guatemalans waved the blue and white Guatemalan flag, sang their national anthem, chanted blue whistles and noisemakers, and set off firecrackers in a mass jubilant display. And as Sunday's presidential elections approach, Guatemala Nobel Peace Prize winner Rigoberta Menchú said that the elections totally lack legitimacy. Now, she also said that the popular mobilizations against President Perez Molina are a great awakening for the Guatemalan people. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro announced that Venezuela and China have signed a deal for a $5 billion loan designed to increase the OPEC countries' oil production. Now, Maduro, who is visiting China, said the loan was destined to increase oil production. This comes as the oil price has risen slightly but remains at record lows. Maduro also said that Venezuela currently sends about 700,000 barrels per day of oil to the Asian giant.
We have signed a special program for the $5 billion loan to increase oil production in a gradual way in coming months.
The Secretary General of the Union of South American Nations, or UNASUR, Ernesto Samper, announced a proposal to create a human rights commission to monitor the situation at the border between Venezuela and Colombia. Now, Samper said the proposal would be discussed shortly during the bloc's next ministerial meeting. UNASUR postponed a special session to discuss the border situation because Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his foreign minister, Delcy Rodriguez, had previous commitments. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos has renewed his calls for diplomatic help to resolve the impasse with Venezuela over border closures. This one day after his proposal to have foreign ministers address the issue failed to secure enough votes at the OAS. In an address to the Colombian nation Tuesday night, Santos made clear he will press on and claimed he does not feel defeated by the setback. He also wondered whether the lack of support at the OAS, which came up one vote short, was the result of political calculations, and he questioned the influence of ideology and economics. With no solution in sight, Santos spoke to the nation and repeated his diplomatic request.
In view of the gravity of the issue, we request the Organization of American States Permanent Council holds a meeting of foreign ministers, as we trust that none can avoid a debate over the contemporary and urgent situation related to human rights.
And President Santos also said that his government is considering taking the case to the International Criminal Court.
The Attorney General informed me that he is seriously considering, as a part of his autonomy, to file a complaint at the International Criminal Court against members of the civil and military leadership of Venezuelan government that could be responsible for crimes against humanity as established by the Rome Statute.
The Colombian city of Cúcuta, on the border with Venezuela, has been a center for smuggling and speculation, much of it controlled by right-wing paramilitaries. But some campesino communities in the region are trying to change that. Telesur's correspondent Milton Enal now has this report from Cúcuta on the frontier.
We're here on the international highway connecting Colombia to Venezuela. Usually this is packed with vehicles wanting to cross the border, but today it's abandoned, like these stalls, which are part of the informal economy that accounts for 75% of activity here in Cúcuta. Over there are the big money changers, which have become so controversial here because of their illegal activity. There are more than 250 of these money changers in this city, most of them on the border. According to community leaders here, they launder money from drug trafficking linked to paramilitary groups. Hello, can I change some money? You're not changing today?
This is a big challenge for the authorities. Some of these exchange houses have been laundering assets for the big mafia, who see Cúcuta as one of the cities where they can do business freely.
Here, the Colombian peso buys 300% more of the Venezuelan currency than it should, an imbalance that is destabilizing the exchange rate and which is based on Decree 08, introduced by former Colombian President Andrés Pastrana, a close friend of the Venezuelan opposition.
This is Venezuela's problem. It's the Venezuelan economy, not us. We just do them the favor of changing the bolivars they bring us, and of selling bolivars to people traveling to Venezuela.
Maria is a peasant from the nearby Catatumbo region. She's come to Cúcuta to put proposals to the Colombian government for a radical reform of the border region. One condition for this is eliminating Decree 08, which her community believes has encouraged illegal activity here.
We want this decree to be revoked because this has contributed to an economic crisis in Venezuela. Colombians go there and buy goods with very cheap bolívares and then sell them here in pesos at a huge profit.
Her peasant community in Catatumbo has been developing its own control over the border with the western Venezuelan state of Zulia, controls that the Colombian government has failed to establish.
We are very aware of the looting of Venezuela by smuggling. That is why in our community assemblies we have decided to act against this contraband, establishing our own community controls and regulating the food that is brought over here.
These communities are demanding that the Colombian government take firm action against the paramilitaries and address the social crisis that afflicts these areas of Colombia on the border.
And in Colombia's capital of Bogota, hundreds of peasant farmers accuse the government of ignoring their rights. They are also calling on authorities to move forward with promised agricultural reforms. Now the campesinos, many of them indigenous, ask the government to commit to defending their lives and to avoid killing their leaders, as well as damaging their land with projects that affect the environment. The protesters said they would not end their demonstrations until the government responded to their demands. Public support for Chilean President Michelle Bachelet is at a record low as her administration deals with a sluggish economy and a political scandal involving her son. Bachelet's disapproval rating jumped to 72% in August from 70% in the previous month. It was the worst figure for any president since the surveys began in 2006. Bachelet's reputation has been tarnished by accusations that her son, Sebastián Dávalos, used his political connections to get his wife access to a $10 million loan and turn over a quick profit on a real estate deal.
I think that Bachelet's low approval numbers is because of what happened with her family, especially with her son and daughter-in-law. I think this damaged her a lot as a person. So I think people are seeing that they don't believe in her now.
A group of indigenous Mapuche leaders gathered in front of Santiago's presidential palace in a failed attempt to meet Chile's interior minister. The Mapuche leaders delivered a letter to the government offering measures to solve the conflict. These measures include the creation of a Mapuche Commission for historical clarification to solve the infringements committed by the Chilean government, as well as the restitution of their territories. Now, another demand is the creation of a Mapuche Constituent Assembly, which they say is backed by international law.
The UN adopted a declaration that establishes the right of free determination of the Mapuche people. So we're here to ask the minister to participate in a Mapuche Constituent Assembly, which will take place next November.
And now to our correspondent Raul Mora in Peru with a special report. There, protests against U.S. military actions have reemerged. Take a look.
A new protest took place in Peru, condemning the increase in U.S. military presence as part of a series of actions that were swiftly approved by the Peruvian Congress in February of this year.
It is simply wrong. North American troops can't come to a country and violate its national sovereignty. That cannot be allowed.
Our fear is that our country will serve as a trampoline to let troops into Ecuador, Bolivia, and Venezuela.
We know what is the history of Yankee troops in our country. There is, for example, the School of the Americas. Their excuse is that they are coming to train us, but we know what they teach our armies.
Analysts and political leaders expressed concern regarding the increase in U.S. military presence in the country, claiming it might be a geopolitical move of the northern country.
There is a special preoccupation about this because it is not like there are small groups that are going to do temporary trainings or they are soliciting permissions to go through the national territory, but they are apparently settling in. That is a big risk since they have been expelled from Ecuador and they have difficulty settling bases in other countries of the region, and they might want to use Peru to have a strategic position.
The largest U.S. battalion to arrive to Peru includes the aircraft carrier George Washington with a crew of 3,200 officers, 90 airplanes and helicopters, radars, anti-aircraft equipment, and other weapons. Little information has been released regarding the purpose for such visits, leaving unclear how will they affect the country in the near future. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
And coming up after the break, shocking footage shows some of the hostilities refugees face in Europe, but also one politician who is calling for more humanitarian solutions. That's coming up.
Discover Latin America and the world in our programs. Telesur Reports, The Real USA, the stories behind the tweets. Ataman, Lives, Know Your Body, Open Files. Exposing the conflicts that affect our people. Compelling personal stories and the most controversial events. See it all on telesurtv.net in English. Telesur. Wherever the news, you'll be there. An insight into Africa today. With Bill Fletcher. The Global African, only on telesurtv.net in English. Wherever the news, you'll be there. The truth behind the power. We lift the lid on some of the world's most ruthless figures. Open File, only on telesurtv.net in English. Wherever the news, you'll be there.
In the United States, a Baltimore, Maryland judge rejected motions to drop charges against the 6 police officers charged in the high-profile death of Freddie Gray, who suffered a fatal spinal injury while in Baltimore police custody last April. Now, the 6 officers involved in Gray's arrest and subsequent death face charges ranging from false imprisonment to involuntary manslaughter. All 6 have pleaded not guilty. The death of Gray, at 25 years old, drew worldwide attention when it triggered protests. The case became a part of a national debate on police treatment of minorities in the United States. Demonstrators gathered outside a courthouse and called for convictions in that case. One demonstrator there told the press that the gathering was part of a wider campaign that not only seeks justice for Freddie Gray, but also for all victims of police abuse.
All around our city, dealing with Freddie Gray. We want to tackle that situation, but we want to also tackle the violence gun violence amongst everybody, with everybody. Is that okay?
I'm out here today along with the People's Power Assembly basically to demand that the charges not be dropped on the 6 police officers, that they do not remove Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby from this case. She was an elected representative of the people. And of course, we don't want a change in venue in this case, which is coming up on September the 10th. So it's really a continuing campaign to win justice for Freddie Gray and also for all the victims of police abuse and terror.
Staying in the United States, the president there, Barack Obama, has secured enough votes in Congress in order to avoid making use of his power to veto the attempt of the Republican Party to undermine a nuclear deal with Iran. That means the Congress will agree to that deal. Our correspondent Bianca Perez now with the details.
In a press conference held Wednesday in Washington, D.C., Secretary of State John Kerry ratified the benefits of a nuclear deal with Iran reached by the group known as the P5+1.
This agreement gives us unprecedented tools and all the time we need to hold Iran accountable for its choices and actions.
And because this is
Senator Barbara Mikulski from Maryland declared her vote in favor of the Iran deal, solidifying the 34 votes needed in order for the deal to be approved by Congress. Secretary of State John Kerry fortified the senator's stance.
Because of the utter absence of a viable alternative to this plan that we have devised, the benefits of this agreement far outweigh any potential drawbacks.
Inspections of Iran's nuclear power facilities are a key consideration included in the treaty at the bequest of the U.S.
The United States, of course, doesn't feel the need to respect the territorial integrity of Iran or other nations for that matter.
Experts feel that although there are enough votes to pass the deal in Congress, the large Republican Party opposition will not sit quietly.
I think Congress again will come forward with some ways to undermine the treaty.
Congress returns from their recess on September 8th and will have until the 17th to discuss and officially vote on the nuclear deal with Iran. Bianca Perez, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
Almost 3,000 refugees were rescued off the Libyan coast, indicating a fresh wave of refugees are still trying to get to Europe. Now, in the meantime, the European Union has yet to decide how to efficiently deal with the ongoing crisis. Greece has appealed to the EU to respond immediately and has also urged the United Nations to become involved due to the huge influx of refugees to its shores. In Germany now, an attack against refugees at a shelter which injured 8 children is bringing to light some of the discrimination faced by those who simply seek to improve their lives. Reports are that a 28-year-old man attacked 40 refugees with pepper spray. That man is now in custody. Police say the man was under the influence of alcohol during the attack and could not yet say whether the attack was xenophobic in nature. The attacker worked at a construction site near the shelter.
Yes, he work here. It's a good man. Too much stay here, work together, drink together, stay together. No have a problem. But we don't know what happened yesterday.
Britain's anti-austerity Labour leadership frontrunner Jeremy Corbyn has called for a more human solution for the refugees entering Europe.
We cannot stand by as European countries and assume there's some kind of electric fence and military solution that's going to solve the problem. It won't. It's a humanitarian crisis. It must be solved by human beings acting in a humanitarian way.
Thai police have issued another arrest warrant for a man whose wife has been in contact with the authorities. It's in relation to the shrine blast earlier that killed 20 people earlier this month. Now, the man's wife had rented a room in a second Bangkok building raided by police where bomb-making materials were found. Police say they are making significant progress in the case. A man recently arrested has claimed that although he had been near the shrine blast and despite fingerprints tied him to the room of a suspected bomber, he said he was not the bomber. Millions of workers across India went on strike in protest at Narendra Modi's economic policies, the biggest show of strength by trade unions since the right-wing prime minister took office. Now, they say labor law reforms planned by Modi's government will put jobs at risk and they are demanding it scrap changes that would make it easier to lay off workers and shut down unproductive factories.
Bosco Ntaganda and his armed group not only terrorized the civilian population, they terrorized their own troops. They recruited and used hundreds of children under the age of 15 to wage their bloody war. They forced these children to kill and treated them cruelly. They also raped and sexually enslaved the girls.
Now we're going to take a look at some of the other stories making the news around the world.
In Yemen's capital of Sana'a, Saudi-led coalition jets repeatedly bombed a Houthi-held airbase and a military college. This is part of the Saudi-led forces' continued attempts to restore the exiled President Hadi to power. So far, there were no official reports of casualties. 18 Turkish construction workers were kidnapped in Baghdad. The workers were reportedly helping build a stadium when they were kidnapped by masked gunmen overnight. The Islamic State is suspected. Migrants staged a demonstration outside Budapest's main international train station as police blocked some 2,000 people from boarding trains to Austria and Germany. Hungary had allowed thousands to board trains to Austria and Germany, but in a U-turn on Tuesday, police suddenly blocked access to the station for anyone without an EU visa. The chair Pope Francis will use when he celebrates Mass in New York in a few weeks has been revealed. The simple, large, solid oak chair was constructed by immigrant workers in Port Chester rather than by experts, a matter that was very important to the Pope.
He wanted something very simple. He wanted something wooden. He didn't want any design, so we're very grateful to the workers. We're very proud of what that represents. And I'm not going to sit in it because it would be bad luck, all right? The first person to sit in that will be our Holy Father.
A bid to stop the South African rugby team to fly to the United Kingdom through the courts has failed. Now, the case was brought against the team by a small political party called the Agency for New Agenda for having too few many black players. At present, 22 of the 31 players are white. This despite a quota system set by the administrators to increase the percentage of non-white players to 50%. However, after the presiding judge heard the matter, he's suggesting the parties engage and discuss the process of transforming the rugby team. Popular British actress Emma Thompson has joined Greenpeace activists in the fight against Shell Oil's drilling activities in Arctic waters. Activists installed a large animatronic polar bear outside the oil giant's headquarters in London with the objective of highlighting the environmental damage that the use of fossil fuels continues to pose on the planet. Greenpeace also argues that Shell's drilling is inconsistent with global goals of reduced carbon emissions. Shell, however, claims that their actions are consistent with responding to the ever-increasing demand for energy.
What's happening in our world now, the conflict, the despair, the hunger, the poverty, is going to look like a cakewalk if we allow this to continue. I'm sorry, but that is the case.
A controversial new proposal to take Hong Kong's beloved trams off the streets has sparked a wave of anger from residents who fear losing track of the city's past. Hong Kong's trams, known as ding-dings for the sound of their bells there, I think we can hear them there, have gone across the city for more than 110 years, and they still carry around 200,000 passengers a day. But a recent proposal to remove the service from the main financial district in order to ease congestion has renewed some fears there that this unique piece of heritage is also under threat, and thousands have signed petitions against the measure. The Hong Kong government has sought to reassure the traveling public by saying it had no plans to remove the trams. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. Thanks for joining us this evening for Telesur English. I'm Cody Weddle. See you right back here tomorrow.